Some men forget everything because their minds remember too much at once. They grab their phone and seconds later forget why they even picked it up. They walk into a room with a purpose, and suddenly that purpose disappears. Their keys vanish, even though they remember holding them moments earlier. Halfway through a sentence, their original thought can suddenly disappear. From the outside, these moments can make them look careless or distracted. But inside their heads, several thoughts may be competing at the same time. Work plans, old conversations, and tomorrow's problems all demand attention. The forgotten detail may simply lose the battle for their limited focus. What if forgetting easily sometimes means your mind is thinking too much? His mind can be planning tomorrow while replaying something that happened hours earlier. He reaches for his keys while another unfinished problem suddenly demands his attention. A simple task disappears because a more interesting thought arrives before he completes it. He opens his phone for one reason and seconds later finds himself doing something completely else. During conversations, his mind may jump ahead while the other person is still finishing a sentence. He can be listening while simultaneously preparing answers and analyzing what someone really meant. Each thought seems small alone, but together they begin competing for the same limited attention. The brain can process enormous amounts of information, but conscious focus has strict boundaries. Imagine several people trying to squeeze through one narrow doorway at exactly the same moment. Only a few thoughts can pass through, while the others are temporarily pushed into the background. This is why a man can remember complicated problems, yet completely forget one simple intention. The missing information was not always erased, because sometimes it barely received attention. His mind had already moved toward another question before the first thought could become stable. What appears like poor memory from the outside may actually begin as divided attention inside. And understanding that competition reveals why the smallest things can disappear surprisingly fast. Psychology reveals that these strange memory gaps often begin before a man realizes he forgot anything. Working memory acts like a temporary desk where the brain keeps information needed for the next moment. A thought like remembering your wallet may survive there for only seconds, unless attention protects it. But another thought about work or tomorrow can suddenly arrive and quietly push that intention aside. Psychologists describe this kind of competition as interference between information demanding attention. Imagine writing important notes on a tiny whiteboard while new thoughts keep covering the older ones. The information may still matter deeply, even when the brain cannot keep every detail active at once. This explains why someone can solve a difficult problem and still forget where he placed his glasses. Complex ideas may capture his attention, while tiny practical intentions disappear into the background. Overthinking increases this competition because the mind keeps generating new possibilities to examine. One conversation can become 5 questions, while one decision creates several imagined future outcomes. Each new thought consumes another piece of the limited mental space needed to hold the present moment. The strange part is that greater mental activity can sometimes create the appearance of absent-mindedness. His memory may not always be failing, because his attention may simply have moved somewhere else first. And that explains why the smallest forgotten moments often happen when his mind feels busiest inside. This becomes obvious when ordinary routines collide with a mind already traveling somewhere completely else. A man may place his keys on the table while mentally solving a problem that happened earlier at work. Minutes later, he searches everywhere because his attention never fully registered where his hand left them. He walks into the kitchen for something while rehearsing tomorrow and suddenly forgets why he came there. Someone introduces themselves, but his mind is already preparing what he should say when his turn arrives. Their name disappears almost instantly because hearing something is not the same as truly encoding it. He can even stop halfway through a sentence because his thoughts have already jumped toward another idea. The brain remembers moments better when attention is actually present while those moments are happening. Without that attention, small actions can pass through awareness without leaving a strong memory behind. That is why searching harder sometimes cannot recover the detail, because it was barely stored at all. The strange part is how clearly he may remember whatever thought distracted him during that exact moment. He forgets where the wallet went but remembers every detail of the problem occupying his mind back then. These moments can look like poor memory when they may actually reveal where attention was being invested. So the better question is not always, why did I forget something that happened only a few minutes ago? Sometimes the more revealing question is whether your mind was truly there when the memory was created. But constantly losing small details can slowly make a man question whether something is wrong with him. He searches for his keys again and feels ridiculous because he knows they were in his hands minutes ago. He forgets something his partner mentioned and worries that his distraction looks like he simply did not care. At work, a forgotten task can feel even worse because other people may interpret it as being unreliable. These small mistakes accumulate until ordinary forgetfulness begins creating real frustration and self-doubt. Psychologists often connect these moments to cognitive load when too much information competes for attention. Think of the mind like a desk slowly disappearing beneath papers that someone keeps adding throughout the day. Eventually, even something important becomes difficult to find beneath everything demanding immediate attention. Stress can make this worse because unfinished problems continue occupying mental space even during simple tasks. A conversation ends physically while his mind continues replaying different versions of what he should have said. Tomorrow's responsibilities arrive mentally before today has even finished demanding his attention and energy. The harder he tries to keep everything inside his head, the more crowded that mental workspace can become. And when attention becomes overloaded, the smallest intentions are often the easiest things for him to lose. He may blame his memory when the deeper problem is how many thoughts he is asking his mind to carry at once. Sometimes forgetting begins not because the mind is empty, but because there is simply no room left for more. Yet the same crowded mind that forgets small things may remember details everyone else completely overlooks. He might lose his keys, but remember exactly how someone's voice changed during a conversation weeks earlier. A simple comment can remain with him because his mind keeps connecting it to emotions, ideas, and past events. Psychology reminds us that memory is selective rather than a perfect recording of everything we experience. The brain naturally gives more attention to information that feels meaningful, surprising, or emotionally relevant. That helps explain why a practical detail can disappear, while a complicated idea remains incredibly vivid. Men who think constantly may spend more attention analyzing patterns, problems, possibilities, and consequences. Their minds can quietly connect details that appear completely unrelated to someone who simply moves forward. This can support creativity, planning, and problem-solving, because reflection gives distant ideas time to connect. But the same tendency can pull attention away from ordinary actions happening directly in front of them. The important point is not that forgetting is secretly proof of intelligence or some extraordinary hidden gift. It may simply reveal that attention was invested somewhere deeper when a smaller detail needed it elsewhere. Once a man understands this pattern, he can stop treating every forgotten object as evidence his memory is failing. Instead, he can begin noticing what was occupying his thoughts during the exact moments when details disappeared. Sometimes what a man forgets tells only half the story because what captured his attention reveals the other half. So forgetting small things may sometimes begin long before you realize that something has disappeared. The original detail may never become stable because your attention had already moved somewhere deeper. Trying harder to remember cannot always recover information your mind barely registered in the first place. A small pause before switching tasks can give simple intentions enough attention to remain accessible later. Notice where you place something and finish one mental action before allowing the next thought to take over. The goal is not to stop thinking deeply, because reflection can remain one of your mind's greatest tools. It is learning when your thoughts become so crowded that the present moment quietly disappears beneath them. A man can forget simple details while remembering complex ideas that occupied his attention for hours. Sometimes the man who forgets easily is not thinking too little because he may be thinking far too much. If this sounds like your mind, subscribe for more psychology behind the strange things men do every day.